Okay, guys, it's Wednesday. It's a crazy, what is it, Angelina?
Crazy Wednesday.
Crazy Wednesday. Okay? I have a joke I'm supposed to tell you guys. So I'm supposed to ask you guys, what is half of a penny?
0.5.
No sense, Angelina.
Oh.
Aww. So today we're going to work on 11-4, multiplying two fractions. This is one of the simplest things we'll actually do, but it will confuse some of us because it talks about fractions. And then the first thing I do want to point out, in the back of the classroom we have an anchor chart that shows us the steps on how to multiply fraction by fraction, fraction by a whole number, and mixed numbers. Today we're just focusing on fraction by fraction. And the back of our anchor chart also shows that how it can be modeled. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to use a couple examples. And I'm not going to use any from guided practice because I want you guys to be able to do all the guided practice. So I'm going to use number 21. And it's going to tell me 1/6 times 3/5 times 20. The first thing I need to do is I need to rewrite this problem. And this problem turns into 1/6 times 3/5 times, we need to turn 20 into a fraction. The way we turn a whole number into a fraction is we're going to do 20 over 1. Okay? Now there's two ways we could solve this. The first way is I can multiply 1 times 3 times 20. Or I could break this apart. I could break this problem into two steps. And my first step would be to do 1/6 times 3/5. And if I did 1/6 times 3/5, the first thing I would do is multiply the numerator, which is 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. My second step is to multiply the denominator. My denominator is 6 and 5. 6 times 5 is 30. Now, if I follow my second step where I work this problem out in sections, one thing I always like to do is I like to cross out the problems that I've done so far. So I know that 1/6 times 3/5 turned into 3/30. Then I need to bring down times 20 over 1. Three times 20 is 60. 30 times 1 is 30. Really simple so far. I haven't done anything that you guys didn't learn before. Okay? Now, my final step is to simplify. The way I simplify this is I need to find the largest number that goes into both 30 and 60. What is the largest number, Hayden? 30. So I'm going to divide by 30 to each side. 60 divided by 30 is what? 2. 30 divided by 30 is 1. 2 over 1 is equal to what?
2.
2. Okay, guys? That's it. We're done. Was that pretty easy?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a way we could check our answer. There's a bunch of different ways we could check our answer. This is how I would do it. I would use the benchmark fractions of 0, 1/2, and 1. Okay? And I would know that 1/6 is that closer to 0, a half, or 1 on a number line? 1/6 could end up being 0, right? And I would know that 3/5, is that closer? Here, actually, I'm not going to write this down here like this. I'm just going to make a little note up here. 3/5, is that closer to 0, a half, or 1 on a number line? That is closer to a half. Okay? So I know that if I do a half times 20, should my number be less than, greater than, or equal to 20? If I'm multiplying 20 by a half. Less than, right? Is 2 less than 20?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I'm talking estimated in that way is because that helps us when we do what? That helps us when we compare fractions, right? So there's other ways to estimate, and we'll go over some different ways, okay? But right now, that just helps us compare fractions. The next question we're going to go over is I'll do number 15. And it's going to be 1/3 times 2/5. Now we're going to do this two ways. We're going to multiply it like we just did above, and then I'm going to show you how we can model it. Okay? So our first step would be to multiply the numerators. Step 1 is always multiply numerators. So 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. So my final answer is 2/15. That was easy, right? Okay. Can I simplify 2 and 15?
Yeah.
No. There's a few rules I can kind of apply, and you guys will learn rules as you get better in math and as you grow as a mathematician. I know a rule from factoring is if I have a 2 and a 5, I can never factor that. Okay? So that's a rule you can put in your mind, is if you have a 2 as a numerator and your denominator ends in 5, you can't simplify that. Okay? Now, if our denominator ends in 0, then you can simplify it. So the next thing I want to do is I want to show you how we could model this. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to draw a brownie pan, and I'm going to divide it into thirds. And this is going to represent 1/3. And I'm going to color in 1/3 of my brownie pan. I'm going to use purple. Let's use green for the next one. And then I'm going to multiply that by 2/5. And I'm going to draw the same brownie pan. But this time, I'm going to divide it into fifths going the other way. So if this was horizontal, we're going to divide this vertically. So I'm going to do 1, 2. It's not perfect either. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could have done that better. But, and I'm going to color in 2/5. So, to find my answer, and you guys need to look up, to find my answer, what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to take my brownie pan that's divided into a thirds, and I'm going to lay my brownie pan that's divided into a fifth on top of it. So I'm going to have one pan like this, like I'm going to have one pan that's divided into 3. Here's my fingers. Then I have 5 fingers, and I'm going to lay that on top of that. And then that's going to give us how many cubes? Does anybody know how many cubes that's going to give us?
2 15s.
That's going to give us 15 cubes. So the way it's going to work, so I'm going to start with my brownie pan again. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it horizontally into 3s. Because that was the denominator of Oh, vertically. I'm sorry, guys. I said that backwards. We divide it vertically into a thirds, because that was the denominator of my first factor I was multiplying. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it into fifths horizontally. So 1, 2. I think that ended up a little bit better. So I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 3. That right there gives me 15 cubes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade 1/3. And I'm going to shade 2/5. Sorry guys, I had a brain freeze for a second. And then my final answer is going to be the cubes that overlay. So you see how 2 cubes I have purple and orange? I only have that in 2 cubes. So it would be 2 is my numerator. And then how many total blocks do I have in my brownie pan? And that's 15. So I ignore everything else. I'm only worried about these 2 areas right here that are shaded in on top of each other. And that gives me 2/15. So what we need to do is we need to do guided practice. And for guided practice, we're going to do 1 through 6 on page 261. And then for independent practice, we're going to do 26 through 42 even. Let me slide this up for you guys. Page 261 and 262, and you're going to do 26 through 42 even numbers. And today's a short day, so we need to work hard and fast, okay? But we also need to make sure we're getting them checked when we're done with guided practice. All right, guys, have a great day. Remember, subscribe, like, and comment.